Welcome to the Perrysburg Podcast, episode 94. I'm your host, Perrysburg resident Kim Newlove. The Perrysburg Podcast is a resource for Perrysburg residents. We talk about what's in Perrysburg and why people like to live here. Our website is perrysburgpodcast.com. My guests today are Kelsie Hoagland and Patrick McColley from ODOT District 2. We'll be talking about road construction projects in and around Perrysburg, safety tips for motorists, helpful smartphone apps, and much more. But first, here's a little bit of background for anyone outside of Ohio. ODOT is the Ohio Department of Transportation. According to transportation.ohio.gov, their mission is to provide a transportation system that is safe, accessible, well-maintained, and positioned for the future. The Ohio Department of Transportation, or ODOT, supports the state highway system and promotes transportation initiatives statewide. My guests do a great job of introducing themselves and their roles right here at the top of the interview. So, without further ado, here's my interview with Kelsie Hoagland and Patrick McColley. Hi, Kelsie and Patrick. Welcome to the Perrysburg Podcast.
Glad to be on.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's my pleasure to have you. Well, it's construction season, guys. We're going to be talking about construction, road construction. I understand you both work for ODOT. One at a time here, let's hear about your roles. Who are you? Why should we be listening to you? And also, why are you wearing orange today?
That's a great question. So I'm Pat McColley. I'm the ODOT District 2 Deputy Director. So that's the director overseeing an 8-county area up in Northwest Ohio. And District 2 is headquartered out of Bowling Green, Ohio, so very close. And Kelsie?
Yes, my name is Kelsie Hoagland. I'm the Public Information Officer for ODOT District 2. And the reason that we're wearing orange today is this week is the third week in April is National Work Zone Awareness Week. And on the Wednesday of that week, nationally, people wear orange to recognize the importance of work zone safety, to keep our workers safe.
Just at your office or people across Ohio?
Across the nation, actually. So this is a National Work Zone Awareness Week, but it's also a National Wear Orange Day. So you have people in state DOTs all across the nation wearing it, and even construction companies and other places too, just to bring awareness to we need to make sure our phones are down and we're paying attention to those workers.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're going to cover safety in a little bit here, but the primary reason that I asked you guys to come on the podcast today was to talk about road projects in and around Perrysburg. So I appreciate the brief introduction. Let's jump into the road projects. I understand there's something coming up on I-75 and Route 20. Who would like to talk about that?
Yeah, I'll take a stab at that. So yeah, 75 and 20. We're going to be having a pretty big job coming up in a year or so, and it's going to go 2 construction seasons. And we all know that the growth in Perrysburg, really in the 8-county area, we're seeing more growth in Perrysburg area, Rossford area, than we are any other place. And that's right up and down 75. You got the Amazon facility going in there. You got First Solar. You have some other warehouse and distribution, even commercial. You got the Canes or the redevelopment of the Holiday Inn French Quarter area. So all of that is really congesting that interchange there, but it's also causing a safety issue. We've seen crashes increase over the last 5-6 years. So we're really looking at how do we address this interchange to make it more efficient, but also safer than what it is today. And to do that, we're looking at a diverging diamond interchange. For those that might not be familiar with that terminology, they're certainly familiar with the interchange because it'd be similar to the one at State Route 25 in Perrysburg by Levis Commons and Costco, and except it'll be going under the highway. So it'll be going under 75. The diverging diamond interchange, it's worked out very well in or the other spot in Perrysburg. And we're looking at putting one there, and that'll operate more efficiently and safer.
What kind of headaches might that cause for Perrysburg drivers?
Yeah, just like with anything, Kim, the headaches, we're very accustomed to causing headaches for drivers out there. But I will say, just like all our projects, people are looking for a solution. They understand what the problem is, and they want us to act more often than not. I think so that people want something. They hate when we do it because that means the orange barrels, that means the inconvenience, that means the detours. But then once we're done, a lot of people have a hard time imagining it any other way because it is more efficient, it is better, and that's the case with will be the case here as it was the case with 75, as it was the case with 25, the Virgin Diamond interchange on 25 that we put in. So, yeah, there'll definitely be some inconvenience, but the short-term pain will definitely be the long-term gain.
How long is it going to take to get that diverging diamond created?
So it's important to know we're not actually going to sell this project until the late of next summer. So summer of 2026, ground will break in fall of 26. So that's really important to know is that those impacts aren't going to be this summer, although there will be some that we'll discuss today that apply to 2025. But then, yes, the significant impacts that are to traffic, we will have to close the roadway completely under 75, so between the two ramps. And that will last upwards of, I believe, around 6 months, that will be the condition. There will still be some ramps that are available at that time, whether that be that you can go northbound. We are going to be reconstructing the northbound ramp, so it will be completely different. But some of the patterns will be able to be maintained while the underside is closed, and some will not. And we'll be having plenty of information out next summer as we lead up to that.
And as Kelsie said, that kind of goes to the right-of-way impacts. The Burger King on the northeast quadrant, unfortunately, to get a diverging diamond in, that will actually the ramp will be going right through where the Burger King is today. So that's something as part of the right-of-way process and negotiation process we'll be working through. A couple other things I wanted to say. I didn't want to get too engineering or too geeky here, but why do we choose diverging diamond interchanges? So some may wonder, like, well, you already got an interchange out there. Why are you putting another interchange in? And the real reason why is the diverging diamond interchanges. I mean, they're newer. The other one in Perrysburg on 25 was the second in the state of Ohio. The first was on Roberts Road and I-270 in Columbus. So you're seeing more and more of them pop up. And actually, we got 5 in the works right now. So you're seeing more and more of them pop up. But the reason why, and again, some of the uniqueness too is for years you've been driving on the right-hand side of the road. Your driver instructor told you to drive on the right-hand side of the road. And we're saying, hey, we're going to have you drive on the left-hand side of the road. But there's reasons why. There's fewer conflict points, and a conflict point is a point where a crash can occur. A typical interchange has about 32. This actually reduces it to 14. So there's less than half the number of conflict points in comparison to a typical interchange. Wrong way driver entry down the ramp is nearly impossible. We've had issues in the Toledo area where we have had wrong way drivers, and unfortunately, that has resulted in fatalities. So it's nearly impossible or extremely difficult to go the wrong way down the interchange. The pedestrian crossing, some people wonder, they're always curious at how that affects bicycle and ped traffic. The pedestrian crossings are shorter, so you're only crossing one direction of traffic at any given time. You might be crossing multiple lanes, but it's only one direction of traffic. Versus a typical interchange, you're crossing 2 directions of traffic. But it also increases the throughput by 10 to 30%. So that's getting through the interchange 10 to 30%, and the overall capacity by 15 to 25%. So when we're looking at a situation where there's clearly congestion, there's clearly issues, we've already had to make some corrections when we added that second left turn lane to go southbound, just to increase the capacity. You can only do so much without actually really revisiting and redoing or reconstructing the interchange. And with this, we'll be able to gain capacity without actually replacing that bridge on 75, and make it safer as well.
Road construction is just a pain. And I'm not trying to throw you guys under the bus at all, but for anybody listening to this, they're probably thinking, oh man, fall of 2026 is not going to be fun on Route 20. And they're probably already thinking about alternative routes. So, do you guys give advice for the locals about other routes to take, or do you just leave it up to them?
Well, I would say twofold there. One is we have actually been meeting with Perrysburg Township and Perrysburg. John Eckel he's the Perrysburg Township administrator, and he's been really a lot of help in coordinating meetings, bringing in businesses, and then just talking through some of these challenges, these detours, and the impacts that it could have on businesses. Perrysburg as well has been a great help. So they've identified some roads, and City Rossford has, that they could be local detours, but then there will also be maybe higher level detours for different routes. I don't know, Kelsie, if you want to add anything there.
Yes, and we are obligated to design our detour routes to accommodate semi and truck traffic, commercial traffic. We don't want to send a semi down a residential road to figure it out themselves. So we design those very intentionally to keep them on state routes, to keep them on ODOT's infrastructure. We maintain interstate, state routes, and federal routes. So we absolutely stick to those for our detours for the commercial traffic specifically, but then like Pat referenced, we are able to create local detours in partnership with our local municipalities so that residents are able to navigate more easily, especially as they're accessing businesses in this corridor, and or even having to reach the interstate if they're not able to reach the ramp that pertains to them. So yes, there's a significant amount of coordination. We have two detour experts that are in our traffic management team back at the office, who are constantly in communication with not only our local municipalities, but also our central office who oversees the major mega hauling, the super loads, if you will, things like that. So there's a lot of coordination and intentionality with detours.
I know it's way too early to ask about what the detour is, but other than following the detour signs, how does a Perrysburg resident find out about the detour once the information goes public?
We have a number of ways that you can interface with our construction information. Foremost, we have our weekly construction updates where we publish in advance what you're going to see and what you're going to encounter when you're out on the roadway. And then when it's more of you're in the car and you're active in your path, you can use our OGO app. That's OHGO, OGO. This is an app that's on your phone, or you can access it via a desktop computer if you'd like. But that helps you understand what the real-time traffic impacts are if you're going to encounter a delay, if there is an active work zone that you're going to approach, if it's inclement weather, if there happens to be any type of precipitation on the ground. We have road sensors in some locations. So there's really a vast amount of information that's available. You can access our traffic cameras from OGO so you can see what the condition of the road is, or if there is stop traffic, you want to look if you're curious. So there is a lot of information that you can gain from our OGO app as well. But we really suggest and encourage people to sign up for those weekly construction updates. That's an email that comes to your email address that you sign up with. So it's actually receiving information that pertains to you in your inbox. You can sign up specifically for Wood County would be how you get.
And I would also add, Kelsie, that we do have a very active social media presence as well, both with District 2 and statewide. I don't know if you want to touch on that a bit.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Pat. Yes, we are active locally here on Facebook and Twitter. We run it for District 2. You can search for us, District 2 Toledo, for the state of the Department of Transportation. But then also there is a statewide platform where they are active on many more platforms. In fact, they have Instagram, Flickr, a LinkedIn account. We have a statewide YouTube account, where there's even additional content that focuses on the state as a whole. But yes, our local District 2 Facebook and Twitter would be a great way to get that construction information as well.
Thank you for mentioning that District 2 is our district because I did go on the website earlier today and I just realized there are 12 districts in the state of Ohio and we are in District 2.
Yeah, that's a good point, Kim. So we got 12 districts in the state of Ohio. We are a very large agency and we have a very large presence. When you look at state agencies, we're the second largest state agency. The first, I usually ask people, this might, who's the first, and nobody has gotten it yet, but it's the Department of Rehabilitation and Corrections as far as employee count goes. So the prison system. But being such a large state agency, we also take care of the state's largest man-made asset, which is the transportation system. And really, as far as agencies go, at the state, we have the greatest direct daily impact on the public versus any other state agency. I mean, whether you're using our infrastructure or not, more often than not, daily people are using it, but also just to get resources to themselves, or even if you're in a nursing home to get prescriptions or food or whatever to you, you're using the infrastructure system. So that's what we're tasked with maintaining. And it takes a lot of people, it takes a lot of effort. And sometimes it's making these improvements like we talked about with US 20 and 75.
Perrysburg is growing so much, and it's best to get that infrastructure in place before it gets any bigger. There's still room to grow out there, especially on the east side. And I think you guys are just trying to make it possible to safely and smoothly get to those destinations east of 75 in Perrysburg.
Yeah, and to that point, we recently released, it's called the State Transportation Development Analysis. If people really want to get into that, they can. But when you look at counties in Northwest Ohio, in the 16-plus county area of Northwest Ohio, there's only one county that's projected to grow over the next 50 years, and that is Wood County. And where you're seeing the biggest amount of growth is in northern Wood County. I think on the west side of Toledo, you got the Anthony Wayne area, Sylvania. They're seeing some growth as well. But as a whole, Wood County is the only county projected to see that population growth. And we're certainly seeing it in our jobs. And, I'm sure all the people in Perrysburg are as well.
Absolutely. There's a lot of traffic on Route 20, and we get stuck at those stoplights. And like I said earlier, I think a lot of people listening about this I-75 and Route 20 diverging diamond are thinking about, oh, detours, that's in my future. How about other road projects in and around Perrysburg? Who would like to talk about that?
I can talk about what's going on this year in 2025.
All right.
So one thing that's already visible to people when they're out on the roadway is a noise wall replacement that's happening here in Perrysburg. This is between 795 and US 20 that we've already been talking about. And this is actually just a replacement. So the wooden noise wall that was there previously is one of the first in the state. It was one of the only wood noise barriers that's been constructed in the state. And it was already at the end of its life cycle. Folks might remember several years ago now, a vehicle crash created some damage to that wall. So there was a temporary fix that was in place while this project was in the works. But now the panels, we will be able to reuse the existing posts. So as motorists are driving by and they see the prongs sticking out of the ground, that's with intention. We'll be able to use concrete panels, which matches the facade and the type of wall that is used now consistently throughout the area and throughout the state. So it will match what exists and what generally is seen in the area. And we're expecting to have that project done in the middle of July.
Sorry, that was along I-75 between 795 and 20.
Correct, in the southbound direction, yes.
And will it have anything stamped on it? Any designs or anything?
That's a really good question and an excellent question as it relates to noise wall decision making. So on the road side, it's not going to have any special decorative features. I don't know the details on the residential side because we survey the residents that live in any area that's going to benefit, we call them a benefiting receptor. So someone who benefits from having the noise wall constructed. We have a minimum of 50% a response rate that's required among the residents that are affected or impacted positively, if you will. And they actually get to weigh in on what they would like to see. So there's a number of colors that they can pick from, different textures and things like that. And they were surveyed in this case.
So actually, and you might not see it from the roadside, but there's a good chance that as you're driving by one of these noise walls, that the pattern and the color on the roadside is actually different than the pattern and the color that the residents behind the noise wall are seeing. So that goes into those survey responses where people can weigh in on what they want on in their backyards.
Well, I'm just thinking about how the local school system's mascot is the yellow jacket. So I'm hoping to see a bee out there. Just saying.
Not at this point, but we would look forward to those ideas in the future. And if you would like to submit a public comment, we always love suggestions from the public. So love ideas, love different things to think about. Other things that really pertain to Perrysburg specifically, there are not that many significant projects. Overall in Wood County, we have a minor resurfacing that's going to happen on 582 between 25 and Mercer. But then something that does come back to 20 and not necessarily connected to the work that we've already been discussing, but a project called Perrysburg Project Yellow Jacket is going to be constructing a roundabout at Lime City Road. So that's a little bit farther east from the junction that we were previously discussing. But that, again, roundabouts, something that we're seeing become more and more common in the area. And I think that we'll talk about roundabouts in a few minutes. But that will be another one of those safety benefits. We see roundabouts as an excellent way to improve safety at intersections and in corridors, helps with traffic flow and things like that. So one of those components will be beneficial.
Thank you. Is that one on Lime City Road already underway?
It's not yet, and it's interesting how those things happen. There is an astronomical amount of work that is leading up to it, and I don't know, Pat, if you want to discuss some of that.
Yeah, and what we've seen specifically in Wood County is the Wood County Port Authority has really taken they've really stepped up as a good partner for us, but also a good partner for economic development. And it's happening at 582 recently. They opened a roundabout at 582 west of 75, which that's close to Perrysburg. It's halfway in between Perrysburg and Bowling Green. So you've seen that one open up, and that's for the recently announced Meta project. So this one is similar, and so they'll actually, by permit, they'll get a permit from us, and then they're kind of in charge of administering that contract and putting it in. Not necessarily the department. Now, the department still inspects it to make sure we're getting good quality there, but it's been a great partnership where they can maybe they can get through some hurdles a little bit quicker, and they can take a multitude of funding where we're kind of stuck with our funding that we get, and able to execute a project very quickly. So that's coming up soon, and they're working towards that. So expect to see some movement, if not already, very, very soon.
Where at on Lime City Road will this new roundabout be?
It's right at the intersection with US 20. So there will be significant impacts to US 20 as far as the traffic maintenance. There will be a detour that is required. Don't have that exact plan right now. I know that we're coordinating again with Perrysburg, Rossford, and Perrysburg Township we will have to use some local roads to facilitate that business access that's on the Crossroads Parkway area. And so I think that that's something that we're still determining in the best way to get people to and from, but
Yeah, I know
it
there's
will
a
happen in
school right there.
2025.
Okay. Yeah,
Yes.
that's going to be a big deal because the school's right there.
And typically we see roundabout. It's not always the case, but we very much try to be intentional again about scheduling, and not that we're specific in influencing this schedule, but there is some intentionality about trying to line up those closures to avoid as much of a school year as possible.
Oh, that's smart. Very good. Any other projects?
Not in
Yeah,
2025 that really jump out.
yeah, I think when you look forward, when you look in the future, there's a number of projects we're looking at long term. One of them, probably the most significant one, would be 475 widening from 75 up to US 24. So we have a feasibility study looking at that. You look at the whole 475 75 loop. So if you get your map out and you're imagining 475 and 75 make this loop, we have widened almost every section except for 475 on the north side of Toledo from Douglas to the 23 split going up to Ann Arbor. And then the other section is in Perrysburg. So the north side of Toledo, the east-west corridor, we call it, is under design now. The one in Perrysburg has a feasibility study. And once we're done with that, we'll likely go into design. Good thing is there's a lot of right-of-way out there already. But once we're done with that, we'll go into construction. Hopefully we'll get construction funding, go into construction. And really, as far as improvements and capacity adding, we're done with 475. We've made generational improvements all in the last 15 years or so. So that's probably one of the biggest ones. We also have a number of roundabout projects coming up. State Route 199 and 582. That'll be coming in a few years down the road. 199 at 5 Point and Dunbridge Road. That's been concern, and actually Perrysburg Township threw in a little bit of money for that roundabout. There's been some safety issues there, and it's just a weird intersection because there's actually 5 roads going into the intersection.
Yeah, I grew up in Pemberville and we used to pass that all the time. It is kind of a weird intersection.
Yeah, and so it needs to be addressed, and it has its own challenges because there's a stream that goes through there, right through the middle of the intersection. There's a packaging plant on the southeast quadrant, but it's got its own challenges. But we're looking at addressing that a little bit farther away, really more towards Bowling Green, Bishop Road at 64. We're looking at putting a roundabout, potentially 64 at 582. And then we're looking at doing something with that 64 corridor between BG and Haskins because that ditch is right along there. So that's under design as well. I know we're getting a little farther away from Perrysburg, but no, those are kind of the maybe significant ones where people will notice. We're doing a lot of paving projects in the future, maybe bridge redecking and rehabs, but the stuff that it's like, hey, I haven't driven this in 5 or 6 months, and there's a roundabout here now. That's the type of stuff the significant stuff that's coming up in the future. I will say too, what I did want to mention just with roundabouts, people ask us a lot, what are with all these roundabouts? We're not Europe, or they have a number of other reasons why we shouldn't put them in. But really, the roundabout is much safer. It actually reduces fatalities by about 90%, reduces serious injuries by about 70%, and reduces crashes by about 30%. Those are the federal statistics, and we've actually looked at some Perrysburg roundabouts, and we're seeing similar data, and we can go through that as well. But often they're more efficient. So some people are, I think a light. We should put a light there. A light's safer, or a light's more efficient. Depending on the volume of traffic, usually a light is not safer, and it is not more efficient. Roundabouts often are more efficient and safer, depending on the volume. If you get over a certain amount of volume, it kind of kicks it to more of a light, traffic light. But that's why you're seeing more and more of them pop up, the efficiency and the safety benefits. And when you start having fatalities or serious injuries, nobody wants to see a loved one get killed. But if we can avoid that, and we're seeing a pattern at an intersection, we're going to address it, and the roundabout seems to be the prevalent solution to that.
I noticed they are getting more popular, and There is some confusion about how to properly go through one. If somebody needs to learn, maybe they're a new driver or they've gone away and moved back, what do you recommend they look at to learn how to properly go through a roundabout?
Yeah, I think it was the Lucas County Health Department just last week did a presentation. We've actually done some at senior centers. We've gone out to senior centers. I know Kelsie went to the Henry County Senior Center. I believe we went to the senior center. It was in Perrysburg or Wood County when we did the DDI to help folks drive through that. So yeah, we're always willing to be guest speakers and help teach people how to drive through one. In general, though, it's the good thing is even if people are in crashes, it's not going to be nearly as severe. The biggest advice I can give somebody to make it simple. To make it simple, it's look left, go right. It's that simple. So look left, nobody's coming to your left, you can proceed. So that's probably the best simple advice I could give to how to navigate a roundabout.
I thought maybe you were going to say that your YouTube channel had a video. Does it?
It does, yes. There is also a series of YouTube videos that are on the statewide YouTube. That's important to remember. There is the statewide Ohio Department of Transportation YouTube. But then there are a series, it's how to navigate a single lane roundabout, which is the most common type of roundabout we have in our area. They do have an instructional video on how to navigate a double lane roundabout, where we do have a couple of those in the area. One that might be resonate with listeners is on Worcester Street in Bowling Green. There are a couple of entrances that have double legs, or up north near Springfield High School, there is one that it's a double lane roundabout. So less common, but there are those instructional videos available. Yes.
Awesome. I think a video says 1,000 words, much like a photo. Yeah. Anything to add?
Yeah, I think the only other thing is two roundabouts that are right in the Perrysburg area. Wood County 199 Roachton roundabout. So that's one that's already in. It's been in. So we looked at before and after the roundabout went in, and it was a 25% reduction in crashes, 81% reduction in serious injuries and fatals. We combined those two. So that's right in lines with the federal statistics. And then the other one was 199 in Carronade. So that actually made some other traffic movements over there. But we've seen a 48% reduction in crashes and an 83% reduction in injury and fatals. So as we put these in and people wonder why, and it really is like, if we can save people's lives or we can save people from being injured, that's the biggest reason we're doing it. Again, there also can be more efficient, but those are folks that are still going to be with us today that did end up getting killed at a very dangerous intersection.
And we do actually see those requests increase. It used to be very much like Pat mentioned before, that people were a naysayer of roundabout, not understanding what the benefits were, or not willing to understand. And now we more often do receive calls of, hey, could you put a roundabout here? And unfortunately, it's not just as simple as us saying, yes, we can. It's a very detailed analysis of the crash history and whether there would be funding mechanisms available, what the right-of-way impact is. There's a lot that goes into that consideration, but we do get those requests frequently.
And some of those concerns that we would used to get in some areas where there might not be as prevalent when we go out to like Williams County or even Eastern Ottawa County. Now we have one at Marblehead, but some of those concerns are truck traffic, boat traffic, moving boats, especially when you get up closer to the lake. And what we tell people, I don't think a lot of people realize that apron in the middle of the roundabout is actually meant to be driven on. It doesn't look like it's supposed to be driven on, but it's meant to be driven on. So as a truck goes over it, we have a very small, what we call a lip or a curb. Those trucks can run their wheels across that. It's meant to be driven on. Now, again, we don't want to make it look like it's supposed to be driven on, but that accommodates large truck movement. It accommodates larger vehicles. It accommodates fire vehicles, fire trucks,
School buses.
Yeah. So we in the design, that's how we can accommodate those larger vehicles that people are like, I can imagine them fitting through this lane. It's like, well, yes, we have the lane, but we also have this, what we call a truck apron as well.
Wow. Thank you for talking about that. Anything to add, Kelsie?
I was just going to reference exactly the same. In Seneca County, we have one where we often have oversized loads, super loads, that was recognized early enough in the design process to actually create additional space with the aprons, even on the outside, to accommodate that radius. This was, in fact, a haul route for NASA, and they had at one time a very large piece of equipment that went through there. So we were, again, able to coordinate enough in advance to design it adequately. And I just wanted to also reference, now that we've mentioned a whole bunch of different counties, what 8 counties are included in District 2? Just wanted to mention that's Fulton, Henry, Lucas, Ottawa, Sandusky, Seneca, Williams, and Wood. So we're the top left 8 of the
Yeah,
state.
and we're protecting against the border of that state up north. But so it goes from Bryan up to Put in Bay, and we do have a state route on Put in Bay. I think we wish sometimes we didn't, because that presents its own difficulties, all the way down to Tiffin. So it's a pretty big geographic area, kind of more of a triangle. But that's the area we represent.
I am impressed, Kelsie, that I think you recited those in alphabetical order. Am I right?
It's the only way I can remember them. I have
There you
to.
go. Yeah, and it's like you've done it before too. So I respect that you know your stuff and so well that you can do it in alphabetical order. Awesome. Well, we've talked a lot about road construction projects in and around Perrysburg, present and future. Is there anything else to add before we talk about more safety tips and things like that?
We just appreciate everybody's patience, and I'm sure we'll reiterate that again. We do have a lot of construction. It's construction season, and you're going to see some more of these. I mentioned DDIs, or diverging diamond interchanges. We're opening one at 20A in July. So that's under construction right there by the Dana's World Headquarters. That goes along with the 475 widening job from 24 up to Central Avenue. And then we're also, with the city of Toledo, looking at one potentially at Secor and 475, as well as Airport Highway and 475. And then we got the one, as we mentioned before, 20 and 75. And then there's even one down in Findlay on County Road 99 that they're building right now. So you're going to see more and more in your travels around the area or Northwest Ohio, more and more roundabouts, more and more diverging diamond interchanges. So it's more new stuff, but we kind of gave you the reasons why we're putting this new stuff in. It's not that it looks pretty, although it can. It does serve a good purpose, and we're trying to make our transportation system better.
Yeah, absolutely. You talked about the widening too. I've seen it on 475, I've seen it on I-75, and I looked up ODOT on Wikipedia and I noticed that the roads were only designed to be around for 50 years or something. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. So there's a 50-year design life. So anytime we do one of these widening projects, to the public, it looks like we're just adding a lane. We're actually rehabbing the pavement as well, because and it's not just the pavement. So they might have put the pavement down in the 60s, but there's also under drains that could be failing, that could be rusting out. There's sometimes base issues. So we're rehabbing the entire system when we do these, and making those generational improvements to make it last another 50 years, while also adding that other lane. A lot of times we also have to add another lane just to keep two lanes open. One of our biggest challenges with that 475 section in Perrysburg is going to be the bridge over the Maumee. It's very tight. So that's something in the feasibility study they're looking at. How do we address this when we widen? But going back to what you said, yeah, there's been a lot of widening. We have over $1 billion in investment on I-75 and 475, and that's going to continue growing. But it's good for Northwest Ohio, and really our logistics presence is putting us at the top of many projects, and we're seeing these projects coming in. Whether it's the rail, we have a number of Class 1 rail lines, whether it's our highway infrastructure, whether it's the turnpike, the new Gordie Howe Bridge in Detroit going to Canada is being built, and then our seaport. We have a very robust seaport, and so that really makes this area, Perrysburg, Rossford, Northwood, Northern Wood County, and even going down to BG, that makes that ideal for development. But it's because of our logistical assets.
Thank you for mentioning the rail and sea. You guys cover air, rail, sea, roads, everything. So I guess we're kind of focusing on the roads here. But is there anything you want to say about anything from planes to trains and automobiles? Anything
Yeah,
else?
we do actually have divisions that inspect the airports. We're a little less hands-on with that. We also have maritime grants. Toledo Lucas County Port it goes between Cleveland and them as far as the largest.
There are also different ways that we're looking at airspace. You mentioned briefly inspection. We're using drones in different ways now as well. How can we use drones to not only identify traffic patterns and get those bird's eye view, but having detailed bridge inspection and being able to actually interface with nooks and crannies that are otherwise difficult to access, using different technologies in that way as well to enhance and to help do what we do.
And that goes to our Fly Ohio division. They also look at how do we rewrite the code or go after federal FAA regulations to make it be on line of sight to try deliveries and things like that. So, I mean, we're into that space as well. Trains, we have our Ohio Rail Development Commission. That's a division under ODOT as well. So yeah, we're into all facets of transportation, and obviously our biggest focus is the highway system because that's what we also take care of, maintain, and build. But these other modes we're also in as far as grants, regulation, or oversight.
Well, thank you for talking about that. Let's go back to safety. Are there any safety tips or anything that you would like to talk about safety wise?
There's actually one thing that I was going to add on to what he said, and that's our safe routes to school program with the grant funding and different things. So we also talk about pedestrian access and pedestrian creating safer areas and ways for pedestrians to access the things that they do. And so I don't know if you wanted to talk about safe routes to school and how we work in that interface.
Yeah, Safe Routes to School is a program that we have that provides funding to municipalities or school districts if they're close to a school. How do we bridge the gaps, the pedestrian gaps, as far as there's no sidewalk, there's no multi-use paths, and how do we improve them? So we want to make sure kids can get to school safely. We also have other programs, our transportation alternatives program, safety program that can also provide funding for pedestrian and bikeway access. So we, some of our biggest goals is just safer. How do we make our system safer? Whether that's whether that's bikes, or whether that's our roadway system. So we do have a number of grant options for locals to access.
Thank you for mentioning that. I think I saw that as a tab on the website. Is that right? Isn't it a tab?
Definitely, yes. And there is a lot of resources out there if there was an educator that was interested in learning more about how that could benefit or a municipality for that matter. I mean, there are, of course, pedestrian amenities are something that overall I think that we're trying to improve as a region, as a nation even. And I think that that is definitely important to incorporate.
Yeah, the website is transportation.ohio.gov. And they would go under the grants button or the grants in section in the navigation bar.
Yes. Yep. And that'll help you access our local programs.
All right. There's going to be one person listening to this that says that, like, hey, I want to know where to learn more. So thank you for talking about that. And also, you were talking earlier about providing feedback. People recommend building a traffic signal or a rounder. How do they provide that sort of feedback? Because there might be one person listening to that thinking, well, I would like to recommend something. How do they do that?
There are so many ways that you can interface with us, and we'd be glad to receive all of those comments. So, of course, like we said, our social media presence, you've mentioned our website. You can contact specifically District 2, and when you access our website, you can get that contact information. You can submit a form online. Find us, our phone number, our email. We truly do welcome all of those suggestions in any form. Even we regularly still get handwritten mail, and we're glad to receive that as well. So comments in any form. We have an amazing traffic safety engineering team who really in depth, passionately cares about the details of, overanalyzes very much in depth any of these recommendations and takes them all seriously. So glad to receive them, and we keep them pretty busy upstairs.
Yeah, and they can do a pretty easy cursory review. We get all the data, so as a police officer, sheriff's deputy, or state patrolman goes out and let's say there's a crash, they all fill out the same form. It's called an OH1 form, and that OH1 form, we collect that data, and so we're able to use our maps or really GIS to determine, okay, is what this person's saying true, or how many? Let's say there was a crash, maybe one crash. Okay, well, there's one crash here, but there's 10 crashes over here, or there's one, there might be one serious injury here, but there's 20 serious injuries at this intersection. So we do got to figure out like where's the best bang for our buck as well, because our resources are not unlimited. But we are able to do a pretty quick cursory review whether there's a pattern there that we need to address.
Yeah, I think people just like to be heard. So I just wanted to make sure to ask because when I have this podcast and I have these interviews, I have the opportunity to think about what my audience might ask. And so I just wanted to make sure to ask, how do they provide feedback? Thank you for that answer, Kelsie, and your addition there, Pat.
No problem.
Any other safety tips? I know we were talking off mic before I pressed record about distracted driving. Do you want to say anything about that?
Yeah, distracted driving has been an increasing problem over the last 20 years, as anybody can imagine, just with the proliferation of smartphones and it's not just phones, it's other means and methods, but phones seem to be the biggest hot topic. There is a primary distracted driving law that's in effect now. Governor DeWine signed that a few years ago, which makes a police officer, if they see you driving distracted, they cannot pull you over. And really, this isn't necessarily about a enforcement mechanism, but the enforcement mechanism also leads to better practices and better habits. And we've seen it in other states that have passed primary distracted driving laws where the habits and the injuries and the fatalities have actually gone down because of it. So we're following the same, the legislature passed the bill and the governor signed it. We're following the same, and we've seen these results, and they have been going down. So, put your phone down, use your car, what are they,
CarPlay, sure,
Bluetooth,
yeah.
CarPlay, put it in auto mode or whatever they call driving mode. But these are all important safety features because at the end of the day, if you're looking down at your phone, it's only a few seconds and you could end up hitting somebody. And more importantly, our workers are very exposed, and whether it's our workers or police officers or deputies or the Perrysburg Township or Perrysburg City workers out there, I mean, they're all very exposed out there. They're not in a car that has crash zones and metal around them. They're trying to do a service for the public, and they're trying to make our systems better for you, the drivers. And so we would just ask that you really make sure that it can wait and use these safety features on your phone and your car, and just don't text and drive. Don't be looking at your phone. Put it down, because other people's lives depend on the decisions you make, and we need to have people make better decisions out there, because unfortunately that doesn't always happen, and that's where we do see tragedy. That's where we do see crashes. So I would just advise everybody from a safety perspective, just use those features on your phone and do not disturb while driving. I think that's what it was. I couldn't think of the terminology there, but the do not disturb while driving and other features, just to make sure you're focused on the road and the conditions and the people out there.
Good advice. Kelsie, anything to add?
There are a couple of things to mention, and unfortunately, we've had already 60 work zone strikes this year in 2025. That's an encounter where someone is distracted or not distracted. Any contributing factor could be, but that there is somehow one of our vehicles or one of our crew trucks that have somehow come into a collision. And so that's just in 2025. It does take into consideration some of our snow plows that were still throughout the snow season, but check our social media. It's very regularly that anytime that you ask one of our highway technicians if they've ever had a close call, it's not even a question. Every single one of them have had an experience that they can think of immediately because of, unfortunately, distracted driving.
And actually, this past summer, you saw more enforcement. We worked very closely with the State Highway Patrol. We called them our sister agency. They even came out with motorcycle units in the Toledo area this past summer in our work zone. So you see we call them variable speed limits. You used to not see those 5-10 years ago, but it changes the speed limit when workers are present. And there's a reason we have those. They're not just cautionary or warnings. It's no, that is the speed limit. And we want to, again, create good habits in those. And the State Patrol has helped us do that. So you're going to see more enforcement in work zones. And that's important both for our workers, but also even for workers that are outside those work zones working, because it's just creating those better habits.
And something to think about as you're a driver who maybe is listening while you're going along right now. You cover about a football field per 3 seconds when you're driving. So you cover a lot of space that even just looking down briefly can be a huge detriment to the roadway, not only to yourself, to our workers, but to the other people that are driving with you. So it's really important to keep that in mind and keep the phone down.
Absolutely. And I, believe it or not, I'm a motorcyclist and have a special place in my heart for motorcyclists. Look twice. You might save a life. Sometimes motorcycles come up kind of quick, they're in your blind spot. Look twice, save a life. Anything else you want to add about motorcyclists?
Yeah, I would. Those are vulnerable users. So we identify like pedestrians, bicyclists as vulnerable users of the system, because they're using the same system that everybody else is, but they don't have nearly the protections that you would in an F-150 or 1500 pickup truck or something. So we need to make sure we're paying attention. And when you get to the motorcycle, whether it's motorcycles or bicyclists or pedestrians, obviously as the weather is warming up, and it's been warming up, you're going to see more of those. You're going to see more of what we consider vulnerable users of our system. And it's incumbent upon all of us to always pay attention, but even be extra vigilant when the weather is warming up and when you are seeing those orange barrels or the more motorcyclists or the pedestrians out there.
Right. Yeah. It's like adding more ingredients to the recipe. You got to look out. Yeah. Kelsie, anything else to add?
No, very important. Again, I would just echo that the season is now enabling a lot of people to get out and move more freely. And so we all have that responsibility, whether you're a motorist or a pedestrian, to all be very vigilant. And the most productive way to do that is to stay off your phone when you're moving about.
Yeah. Good advice. Is there anything you'd like to say about the Adopt a Highway program?
Yeah, thanks for asking. Yeah, so Adopt a Highway is a great opportunity for people of the public who might be interested. Of course, we see litter as a man made created problem that is inundated along our roadways. And so, if there is a person who's interested, we do have segments of roadway that are available that you can adopt yourself. We ask that you come out, I think it's 4 times a year, once a quarter, to come and pick up the litter. And that allows you, you might have seen those blue signs on the side of the road before Adopt a Highway, and it recognizes the individual groups. And actually, in Wood County, we have the most Adopt a Highway groups of any county in District 2. So there is a tremendous following here and participation in Wood County, and we would love to have more groups. So again, you can use any of those methods to contact our office. And we tremendously thank our Adopt a Highway groups. They do a great service to the public that they don't have to do, but that they're volunteering to do. And so it goes a really long way. Again, we have a tremendous number in Wood County. And so we thank them. We thank all of our groups, and we would love to invite more to participate.
Kelsie, you just said that they could go on the website and fill out a contact form if they're interested in adopting a highway, right?
Certainly. Yep. Yes. Or giving us a call, website, Facebook. Yes. Anything, and we'll get you connected to the right person.
Very good. I've seen the signs, but I've never thought about adopting a highway myself. So thank you for telling me about how that comes about.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's cool. Yeah. And as we start to wrap this up, is there anything else that you would like to share?
We talked a lot about how you can interface with our information and different ways that you can actually gain access to what's happening on the roadway. And we mentioned that we do have the OGO app and, of course, our construction updates, which we encourage you to sign up for as a road user. But another thing that we're really working on, and this is a bigger picture of how our data is used, we are working on integrating with Google, Waze, Apple Maps, and some of those other features that you might have on your phone that you're more instinctually using. You might not always be going to OGO or think of that. But Google Maps, of course, is something that people are very used to using. And so we have about 70% of our information that is being currently fed to Google and Waze that they're able to use. And we are still working with them to perfect the rest of our data. So that's something that we look forward to. And that's a great way. Again, it's really about the safety of our workers, educating you that there is a work zone that you need to be aware of and looking out for. Having that interface and being able to communicate that to you before you hit the roadway is so important. So that's why we're looking to amplify our data on those apps.
Thanks for talking about those apps. Does the app show that the destination will take longer to get to, when you do contribute that construction information?
Yes, especially if it's a road that has a closure, a full closure where you are being detoured because you can't even go through with one lane of traffic. If it's a full detour, we are working on actually having the map provide that detour written in time so that you can follow it accurately. So that again is part of perfecting the data and why the path isn't so simple as just flipping a switch. It's very intentional in making sure that the data feeds line up. As you can imagine, if it's somebody who's interested in data, it's very complex. But that's why we're still continuing to refine that to make sure that it is effective for the public.
Nice. I think that's really cool. The cooperation among the apps and the agencies. That's really cool. It benefits all of us as motorists.
Yeah, and I would just say we're trying to communicate with people as best we can on all mediums that they're using. And that's, I think some people, they want to communicate and have them come to them. And in this case, we're just trying to get in front of people in whatever space, or app or program that they're using. And I just think this is another good example of us trying to be proactive.
Yeah, meet them where they're at, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Yep.
Very good. Anything else to add as we wrap this up?
I just want to thank you for inviting us to be on this podcast. Actually, we're on the news a decent amount. We're on radio some and in the newspapers, but this is the first time either one of us has been on a podcast. So this is our inaugural podcast, initial podcast. So I just really appreciate the invite and, thank you for what you do to provide information to the community.
My pleasure. Kelsie, any last words?
Thank you. Like we said, we could stay and talk for hours. So if there's ever another topic that comes to mind, we'd be glad to come back. But thank you for having us.
All right. Well, I appreciate that. Maybe we'll have an encore podcast episode down the line. Pat, Kelsie, thank you so much for being here on the Perrysburg Podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks again to Pat and Kelsie for being my guests today on episode 94 of the Perrysburg Podcast. I learned a lot, and I hope you did too. They covered the upcoming I-75 and Route 20 Diverging Diamond Interchange project coming up in fall of 2026. They talked about other upcoming road construction projects here in Wood County, safety tips for motorists, work zone safety, roundabout benefits, and stats. Good job on the stats, Pat. Distracted driving, which counties are in District 2 for ODOT, including Wood County. That was interesting. The Safe Routes to School program, the Adopt a Highway program, smartphone apps like OGO and Waze, how to stay informed with ODOT's social media channels and email updates, and how to reach out to ODOT with input or requests. As a review, you can contact District 2 through their website. They've got that contact form. You can also send an email, call the office, message them on social media like Facebook or Twitter, or send a handwritten letter. There are many ways to get in touch. Pat and Kelsie were a wealth of information in this episode. I may not be looking forward to the construction phase of all of these projects, but I am certainly looking forward to the results. I think we all are. In the meantime, watch out for that state flower of ours, the construction barrel, and be safe out there. Watch out for road workers. Get over, be safe. I'll have links to ODOT's website and social media channels in the show notes on perrysburgpodcast.com. In the show notes, you can also find links to those smartphone apps that were mentioned. They are the OGO app, spelled OHGO, OGO, and Waze, which is spelled WAZE, Waze. If you'd like me to email you every time a new episode of the Perrysburg Podcast comes out, sign up for the Perrysburg Podcast's weekly newsletter. You can find the sign up form on perrysburgpodcast.com. That's all I have for you today. Go ahead and share this episode with anyone you know who lives in Perrysburg or Wood County who might like to hear about upcoming road construction projects, safety tips, apps, and more. Thanks for listening today. Subscribe to or follow this podcast for all future episodes, and I'll talk to you next week.